M5D UFO Files. Unraveling the UFO Files. Revelations that change everything.
Welcome to the deep dive. What if the most mind-bending technological advancements aren't just, science fiction?
What if they're actually being studied? Secretly, right here on Earth.
Exactly. Today we're plunging into a really fascinating and controversial set of sources. We're looking at interviews and discussions with Bob Lazar.
Right, the man whose claims basically turned the world of UFOs and secret government projects, completely upside down.
So our mission today is to really unpack Lazar's story, these incredibly detailed claims about working on alien craft at a top-secret base.
Yeah, we want to explore the alleged science behind how these things supposedly fly and the huge implications, personal, societal, if any of it is true.
It's quite a ride. Get ready for a journey that definitely challenges your perception of what's possible.
And what's so interesting, as you mentioned, is Lazar wasn't initially a UFO guy at all. He was a physicist, a scientist.
He described himself as a skeptic, didn't he? Viewing believers as lunatics.
Pretty much. Dismissed sightings as silliness until he says he got directly involved. So how does that guy end up at S4 supposedly working on alien tech?
It's a huge leap. What was his background before all this?
Well, it was kind of unconventional. He was known for building things like jet cars, messing with chemistry, even fireworks. Not your standard academic path, maybe.
A jet car. Okay. How did that lead to this?
Apparently, Dr. Edward Teller, atomic bomb inventor, saw a newspaper article about Lazar's jet car.
Edward Teller.
That's the claim. And this connection somehow led to Teller eventually referring him for a job.
A job with who?
With the Department of Naval Intelligence for something called Project Galileo, working at this S4 facility about 15 miles south of Area 51 proper.
Naval Intelligence?
Yeah.
Project Galileo? And the security clearance he talked about was just off the charts, wasn't it?
Absolutely astounding. He called it majestic clearance, said it was 38 levels above a civilian top secret Q clearance.
38 levels? I mean, what does that even mean in practical terms?
Extreme compartmentalization. He mentioned only 22 people were involved in Project Galileo. Just underscores the intense secrecy, if true. It sort of fits with wider ideas about hidden structures for this kind of info.
So he gets this crazy clearance. He's working for Naval Intelligence, but not at Area 51, but nearby at S4. What was the commute like? How did he physically get there?
It sounds pretty wild. He'd drive to McCarran Airport in Vegas to a special projects building, then take a plane, like a 737, to Groom Lake. That's the Area 51 we usually hear about. Dreamland.
Right.
But then from Groom Lake, he'd get on a bus with blacked out windows for part of the trip, driving him about 15 miles south to S4.
A bus to a secret mountain base.
Yeah, he said S4 was actually built into a mountain range, disguised, and the feeling. Always escorted, never alone, like stepping into another reality.
Wow. So, okay, he arrives. What's the first thing he sees that makes him think, okay, this is real?
Well, he describes the facility itself. 9 hangars built into the mountain base. And inside these hangars, 9 different discs. Alien craft.
9 of them.
Did he describe them?
Yeah, he gave them nicknames based on their shapes. There was the sport model, Sleek, the one he apparently worked on the most.
Okay.
Also a jello mold shape and a top hat. He even mentioned seeing one craft that looked like it had taken a hit, like a large projectile hole with the metal bent outwards.
Went outwards, suggesting impact from inside or maybe testing.
He speculated maybe they were testing if they could penetrate it, but yeah, outwards.
Let's focus on the sport model, the one he worked on. What were the details there? Size, material?
He said it was about 52 feet across, maybe 16 feet high. The material was strange, cold to the touch.
Like metal.
Yeah, he compared it to brushed aluminum or unfinished stainless steel. But the really weird part, no seams, no rivets, no welds, nothing.
No seams at all. How is that possible?
He said it looked like it was injection molded from one giant die, which, is just completely beyond our manufacturing capabilities, certainly then, probably now.
Injection molded. A 52-foot metal craft. That's... wow. Did he describe the inside? He did. He described 3 levels. The central level had the reactor, which we'll get to, and 3 small seats.
Small seats.
Yeah, really small. Suggesting the occupants were maybe 3.5 to 4 feet tall. Much smaller than humans.
Okay. What else on that level?
The floor was made of these hexagonal panels, and the hatch to get in was strange, like a honeycomb structure you'd push, and it would sort of collapse inward to form an opening.
Ingenious design.
Yeah.
What about the other level?
The lower level housed 3 large gravity amplifiers, cylinders basically about 2 feet wide, 4 feet long, movable.
Gravity amplifiers, would definitely need to circle back to those. And the top level.
He believed that was for navigation, but he didn't seem to have direct access or knowledge of that part.
And it wasn't just the technology that was alien. He mentioned seeing some biological evidence.
That's right. This is pretty disturbing stuff. He claims he saw autopsy photographs of what he described as a typical gray alien. He said the photos showed it vivisected, with basically one large central organ that seemed to do everything. He compared it to a vivisected liver.
A single organ doing multiple functions. That's biologically bizarre.
Completely. And even more startling, he said the briefing materials he read claimed that aliens had made something like 63 or 65 corrections or additions to our genetic makeup.
To human genetics. Since when?
Since we were, in their words apparently, simian creatures, implying this long history of, well, genetic manipulation by an outside force.
That's reality-shattering if true. Well, not just alien craft, but alien intervention in human evolution itself.
It fundamentally reframes everything we think we know about our origins, our place in the universe.
This message is brought to you by the Deep Dive Project, where knowledge breaks the code.
So alongside these huge scientific revelations, there are also stories of things going wrong, dangerously wrong.
Right, you mentioned incidents. What did he say happened at S4?
He was told specifically that he was hired as a replacement.
For
one of 2 scientists who were killed there. Apparently they were trying to cut into one of the reactors while it was operating.
So you can't just cut into an operating alien reactor.
Apparently not. He said it exploded. An explosion that rivaled a small tactical nuke.
Whoa. What happened then? How did they cover that up?
Passed off as an unannounced underground nuclear test. Plausible, given the location near the Nevada test site, I suppose.
A tactical nuke-level event. Just covered up. Were there other dangerous events? You mentioned aliens.
Yeah, he was told about an incident back in 1979. A violent one. Security personnel were killed by aliens.
Killed by aliens? How?
The story he got was that security tried to enter an area where live aliens were, maybe carrying standard firearms, but the energy field around the aliens, or the tech, meant their sidearm bullets would detonate if they got too close.
So they couldn't use their guns.
Right. A feat broke out somehow, and the security guys ended up dying from head wounds. Not gunshot wounds, head wounds.
That's terrifying. And he mentioned Russians being involved at some point?
Briefly, yeah. He heard the Russians were involved in the program early on, but got kicked out after some kind of breakthrough occurred. Again, adding layers to the secrecy.
Okay, let's shift to the tech itself. The propulsion. That was the main goal, right? Back engineering how these things fly.
Exactly. That was Lazar's primary job, of figure out the power and propulsion, and the core concept was gravity manipulation.
Gravity manipulation, how?
He said the craft generates its own intense gravitational field. This essentially isolates it, meaning inertia becomes irrelevant inside.
Inertia is irrelevant, so no G-forces.
None. He described how the craft could make instant 90-degree turns at thousands of miles per hour, and the occupants wouldn't feel a thing. Because relative to the localized gravity field, they aren't really accelerating violently. They're operating in their own little bubble of space-time.
That explains the impossible maneuvers people report seeing. So what powers this gravity generation? What's the fuel?
Element 115. Now officially known as Moscovium, but the version Lazar described was different.
Different how?
He claimed it was a stable isotope of element 115. An exotic, super heavy element that was strictly extraterrestrial.
Stable, because the Moscovium we've synthesized in labs is incredibly unstable, right? It lasts fractions of a second.
Precisely. That's the key distinction. He was told the US had about 500 pounds of this stable alien version, but we couldn't make it ourselves in any usable quantity, only the unstable stuff.
Okay, so stable element 115 is the fuel. How does it work in the reactor? You said it was small.
Yeah, only about the size of a basketball. But incredibly advanced. He described it as an antimatter reactor.
Antimatter. Generated how?
Basically, the element 115 is bombarded with particles inside the reactor. This causes it to transmute and critically release antimatter.
Okay.
This antimatter then reacts with a gaseous target material also within the reactor, and that reaction converts mass directly into energy. 100% energy, he claimed.
100% conversion. That violates well-known physics, thermodynamics.
It absolutely does. He also mentioned a 100% efficient thermionic generator, converting the heat from this reaction directly into electrical power. Again, seemingly impossible by our understanding, but he insisted it worked.
And this reactor also generates gravity waves.
Yes, that's the crucial output for propulsion, a gravitational wave.
So how does that wave make the craft move? You mentioned gravity amplifiers earlier.
Right. Those 3 large movable amplifiers in the lower level, they take the gravitational wave from the reactor, amplify it, and focus it.
Focus it where?
Depends on the mode. He described 2 main configurations. One was called Omicron, or maybe Omega.
Okay, Omicron mode, what does that do?
It uses one amplifier pointing down, providing lift against Earth's gravity. The other 2 amplifiers focus ahead of the craft, creating a distortion, like a downhill slope in space-time.
The downhill slope.
Yeah, so the craft essentially rolls downhill for infinity, constantly chasing this distortion it's creating just ahead of itself.
Wow, that's a really weird way to think about movement.
Isn't it? He did say this mode was unstable at low speeds because Earth's own gravity isn't perfectly uniform, which could interfere with that delicate downhill roll.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What was the other mode? For, like, space travel?
That was the Delta configuration. For that, all 3 gravity amplifiers focused their beams to a single point much further away.
And then
The craft would tilt up on its side. And by projecting this intense, focused gravity beam, it could drastically distort space-time between its current location and the destination.
So it's not flying through space in the conventional sense?
No, it's contracting the space in front of it and expanding the space behind it, effectively pulling the destination closer and pushing the origin further away.
Bending space and time. The Einstein stuff.
Exactly. He said by producing this extremely intense field of gravity, the craft could distort the distance between 2 objects and make it shorter.
So she travels vast distances.
In very little time, and without actually traversing the intervening space linearly at high speed. This bypasses the light speed barrier problems like relativistic mass increase or hitting micrometeorites. It's just pulling space-time towards itself.
That is genuinely mind-bending technology. What did it look like from the outside when it was flying?
He said during test flights, it was almost silent, just maybe a faint hum or hiss. You might see a small corona discharge at the bottom, indicating high voltage.
And at night, the glowing lights people report.
That's apparently the high-energy field ionizing the air around the craft, causing the gas molecules to emit photons, like a contained lightning effect, so it would look like a glowing ball or a bright light.
What about the weird visual effects sometimes reported, like it disappears or changes shape?
He mentioned that. Because gravity bends light, if you were looking at it from certain angles, especially from underneath, the intense gravity field could bend the light coming from above the craft around it towards you.
So you might see the sky through where the craft should be.
Potentially, yes. Or see a distorted view of what's above it instead of the craft itself. A literal optical illusion created by warping space-time.
The physics involved are just staggering. Did he learn about anything besides propulsion? Other projects?
He briefly mentioned a couple. Project Sidekick, which sounded like weaponization research, using the gravity generator somehow as a lens for a particle beam weapon.
Weaponizing gravity. What else?
And Project Looking Glass. This was apparently about observing time distortion effects related to the gravity fields, maybe on the order of milliseconds, seeing into the past or future. Wasn't entirely clear, but profoundly strange.
So he's got all this knowledge, this potentially world-altering information. Why risk everything to go public?
His stated reason was simple belief. He felt this was the most important event in history, confirmation of alien life and technology. He believed people had a right to know, that it shifted things from sci-fi to reality.
A moral imperative, almost.
That's how he framed it. But the consequences were immediate and severe.
How did the powers that be react?
Threats started even before he fully left, he claimed. Mentioned having a gun pulled on him during a debriefing, his car being shot at. Standard intimidation tactics, perhaps?
And after he went public?
Then came the systematic erasure, it seems. Denials from Los Alamos, where he claimed he worked. Denials from MIT and Caltech, where he claimed he studied. Even the hospital where he was born supposedly lost his records for a time.
They tried to make him a ghost. What about polygraphs? Lie detector tests?
He took several. He maintains he passed them. Some reports say results were inconclusive on certain questions, which isn't the same as deceptive, but it adds to the ambiguity. The official story became, he never worked there, never studied there, he's making it all up.
That kind of pressure must have fundamentally changed him. his view of the world, of the government.
Completely. He went from thinking the government, generally tries to protect people to believing it acts purely in its own self-interest, prioritizing secrecy above absolutely everything.
And his view on UFOs obviously shifted.
From silliness and lunatics to absolute certainty. Not just UFOs, but alien civilizations interacting with Earth. It was a total paradigm shift forced by experience, he claims.
Looking back now, after all the trouble, the backlash, does he regret it? Regret speaking out?
He's actually said he does. He wished he'd played along for a longer time, learned more, gathered more proof maybe, and just kept quiet.
Really? He wishes he hadn't told anyone?
Yeah, he admitted it mostly just caused headaches and problems. Said if he had a do-over, he would have just shut up and gone along with the program.
That's kind of sad, in a way.
It is. He expressed deep frustration that this incredible technology, if real, is locked away, kept from the wider scientific community by this intense military secrecy and compartmentalization. He felt it actively hinders progress, that science and military secrecy just don't mix well.
Is he still involved in science or technology now? What happened after S4?
Well, he runs a company called United Nuclear, supplying scientific equipment, chemicals, materials, kind of going back to his earlier interests.
Anything else?
He's also worked on a unique hydrogen fuel system for cars, using something called metal hydride for safe storage. He thinks it could be revolutionary, letting people make fuel at home with solar or wind.
Another potentially disruptive technology, facing resistance.
He suggests it faces political and economic hurdles, from industries invested in the current energy economy. Seems to be a pattern in his life.
So, summing up Lazar's impact, despite the controversy, the denials, the questions, what's his legacy?
It's undeniable, really. His testimony, whether you believe every word or not, became a cornerstone for modern ufology and the whole Area 51 legend. People like Boyd Bushman, a former Lockheed engineer, and even astronaut Edgar Mitchell pointed to Lazar's story as significant.
So he shifted the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He took these ideas out of the fringe somewhat and put specific technical details out there that forced a more serious, though still contested, discussion about alien tech and government cover-ups. He changed the public perception, no question.
It's been quite the deep dive. We've touched on just incredible claims. Basketball-sized antimatter reactors.
Element 115 as alien fuel. Gravity drives bending space-time for travel faster than light.
And the immense, suffocating secrecy allegedly surrounding it all.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If technologies like this and the truth about our place in the universe are actually being kept secret, what else might be out there? What other fundamental truths are waiting?
And maybe more importantly, what's the real cost? For people like Lazar, yes, but also for all of us, for human progress, when that kind of knowledge is locked away, code broken only by a select few.
Something profound to think about. How does this challenge your own understanding of what's possible? Science, government, the cosmos itself.